Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Herkman, and today on Hump Day Health, we're going to talk about intimacy. And when people hear the word intimacy, they often think that we are talking about sex. And I find that the words sex and intimacy are frequently used interchangeably. And I think it's more than an issue of semantics because they don't mean the same thing. And so it loses the nuance, and people assume that other people know what they're talking about when they use these words. So I looked up the word intimacy. I like seeing the roots of things, and the Latin root of the word intimacy is the word intimus, which means innermost. And when you think of the word intimacy and the different ways that it applies in situations, the thread is a sense of closeness. It could be a physical closeness, it could be an emotional closeness, it could be a sexual closeness, right? When you get into an elevator and there's just you and one other person, and there's that kind of awkwardness sometimes because it's a physically intimate space. When you have a sexual experience, so sometimes people think intimacy just means sexual intercourse, but the truth is sexual activity, generally speaking, can be an intimate experience. Having an orgasm with a partner can be an intimate experience. People can have an intimate knowledge of a subject, of a person, of a group. Again, there's that sense of familiar, of closeness. And when we're talking about sex, so sex in a long-term relationship or in a serious relationship fits into this larger conversation about intimacy. What does it mean to be intimate with another person? What does it mean to allow another person to get to know you, to let them in? And the analogy that I use for intimacy is like this. So let's say you're sitting in a theater and you might have a great seat. Maybe you have an orchestra seat. And then you get invited to go backstage. So you get to go behind the curtain, behind the backdrop, and you get to see more of what goes on behind this production. You get to see what all the technical stuff is like. You get to see what the actors are like in their downtime. You might get to know maybe some of the politics, whatever it might be. So once you have that experience, and then you go back to your seat, when you look then at that stage, you are not going to see the stage in the same way. You're going to have a greater appreciation for what this whole production is because you spent some time getting to know what goes on behind the scenes. So intimacy and intimacy within a relationship is basically allowing someone to have more of that backstage experience that other people may not have, and other people may not know you in that way. And when we're talking about sex in an intimate relationship, so it's important to keep in mind, first of all, that intimacy is scary. It could be meaningful and amazing, but the idea of letting someone in various ways can be very frightening for people and can feel very risky. And there are so many aspects of intimacy to a serious relationship. The idea of friendship, there's shared living space, there's sharing inside jokes, really knowing this person in a way that many other people don't know them. And when we're talking about sex, so the conversation about sex is so much more than just pleasure and frequency and tips and functioning. And those aspects are very, very important. There's no question about it. But sex fits into a larger context of intimacy within a relationship. What does it mean for partners to let the other one in? What does it mean for them to feel seen? What does it mean for them to be able to share what's on their minds and what's on their heart and what they're struggling with? And what does it mean for them to communicate what feels good for them? Again, we're talking about a much larger conversation of intimacy that's so much bigger than just the little stats about sex. And so when we're talking about building healthy sexual intimacy, it's more than just, like I said, the sexual aspect, but what does intimacy mean for these people as a couple, and how are they able also to navigate the various stressors that come up that threaten and create challenges for the general intimacy within a relationship. So I look forward to expanding on this topic more, especially the idea of sex in terms of how sex and intimacy play off each other, especially in how they influence the rest of the relationship and how the people feel about themselves within the relationship. So I'll see you guys next week.